I'm Christy,
And I'm Kathy.
and this is The Psychic
And the Skeptic. Welcome back to The Psychic and the Skeptic. And on this episode... Wait, what do you hear? What is that? It's Christmas!
Yay!
Merry Christmas, everyone! Merry Christmas to our listeners. This is our Christmas episode and our 28th episode. And today we are going to bring to you part 3 of our Psychic Detectives series.
Now, maybe you got up early to be able to hear this episode. And if so, kudos to you. I don't have enough coffee in me in the mornings to get up that early.
Maybe you
But
get
if
up real
not-
early if you have little kids.
Right? Oh, I can remember when I was a little kid.
Yes, now they're playing with their toys and you're sitting there sipping on your coffee, putting your feet up with a little paranormal, psychic, and skeptic.
Right? And you know what I did as a kid? Let's take a stroll down memory lane for a minute. And when I was a kid, my mom and dad needed to go Christmas shopping. It was like the week of Christmas. So they hired this babysitter. It was this girl named Kelly that lived down the road. And I don't know, she's probably 14 or 15. I don't really remember. But anyway, she came over and she told me and my sister, hey, do y'all want to know what you got for Christmas? And we're like, yeah, with no idea, right? So what she did is Kelly carefully unwrapped all of our presents, like peeled the tape and everything back, and we got to view what they were. And then she carefully put the tape back. So every Christmas Eve, our tradition was to pick out one gift. Well, me and my sister already knew what we wanted. So
Or
we
what
went
you got, you
straight
already
to the
knew.
gift. Yes. I never did tell my mom until I was an adult.
You had to confess.
Right? I wasn't going to get in trouble, man. Knowing my mom, she would have got me. But yeah, so speaking of like a tradition, that's what we used to we still do it. I still do that with I have a son
Yeah.
that's still at home. That's 15, and that's what we still do. What,
My 19-year-old would never. One of his favorite parts is the surprise. He doesn't even want to know what everybody else got. He
oh,
wants to be surprised watching everybody open their stuff on Christmas.
oh,
He's so sweet.
that is sweet.
Very sentimental. Yeah, he's very much into the nostalgia of the season.
So do you guys have a tradition that you do on Christmas?
Oh, yeah, lots of traditions. I mean, we have to open presents before the sun comes up.
Yeah. We open
But-
ours whenever the kids get up. That's just it.
I mean, there are lots of little traditions, but yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, like we were saying, if you got up at the crack of dawn and you're sipping on your coffee, listening to us, we want to say a big thank you. And if you didn't get to listen to this podcast because of Christmas stuff going on, we hope you at least got to come back here and listen to finish our part 3 of Psychic Detectives.
Right. And we hope you enjoy those leftovers while you're at it.
Oh, yeah.
So we are wrapping up some of the notable psychics that have worked on cases to potentially help or supposedly help solve crimes, depending on who you ask. The first part of this series went through the different methods, gifts, or ways that psychics may tap into cases to gain tips or information or leads to help investigators find or solve these crimes or mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
And then part 2, we started off talking about,
Different psychics.
right, Peter Herkos was one of the earlier known psychics,
Mm-hmm.
and Dorothy Allison, which we saved one of her cases for today, being the Christmas episode, because she had some involvement, or at least offered some tips in the Jonbenet Ramsey case.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been living under a rock, or maybe you were born after 2000, you've probably heard of the Jonbenet Ramsey case. And even still, I believe some Gen Zers are aware of it because they're back in the news with this case, even though it's currently unsolved, the time that has passed, this is over 30 years.
Yeah.
It's technically a cold case. So police had responded to the home of the Ramseys the day after Christmas in 1996. Jonbenet Ramsey's mother had supposedly found a note saying that her daughter had been kidnapped. So it was a ransom note requesting a specific amount of money, $118,000, which was another one of the head scratchers. Why so specific? And it
Yeah.
was a really long, drawn out letter. It was in the home, and it created a lot of controversy or conspiracy theories. Handwriting analysis said that it was similar to the mother's handwriting. And there was a practice note, like a page in the notebook that looked like there was some practicing before the actual note was written. So there were lots of other pieces to this puzzle that made a lot of people scratch their heads and made all kinds of tabloid news. The family was smeared. Even her older brother, who was 9 at the time, even he got dragged through the mud with this case.
I remember them accusing the family, and I
Yes.
remember this case being all over the news, the newspapers, I mean, TV, everywhere you turned, you were seeing this little girl's face.
Right. And I think the family got dragged through it because early on, the police didn't create a panic for the public. She was missing for a short period of time, and when the investigators came into the home, they were very messy. They didn't seal off the home. There were people coming in and out.
Shoddy police work then, huh?
Right. Well,
Follow the
clean,
basics. Yeah.
but it was a missing persons case at this point. So there wasn't any reason to believe that her body was in the house or that a murder had occurred there. I'm not really sure if they admit any wrongdoing or if any wrongdoing was done, but it's pretty clear to the public that in hindsight, they should have sealed off the home. I mean, there are footprints everywhere. And so that's what created a lot of problems in trying to solve this case.
And I don't remember. Can you refresh on how long was she missing? Because I know they found the body,
Well,
but
yeah, but backing up a little bit, the family got dragged through the mud because the police said that it wasn't an imminent threat to the public. So then the people thought,
what?
well, that must mean they have an idea who the killer is, and yeah, and so like you were saying, the body was found during searching for clues throughout the house because the story was she was taken from her bedroom in the middle of the night. Now, the family had attended a Christmas party on Christmas night, so this was the evening of Christmas, and the day after Christmas when they woke up is when Patsy then realized she's missing, called the police after finding the ransom note, and so on and so forth.
Where
So
did they find her body?
it was in the basement, and it's pretty brutal what happened to her. We could get into details, but I think that could be left unsaid for this particular podcast, and people can search up the details about what happened to her.
Main cause of death, though?
Strangulation,
Okay.
yeah, so asphyxia. She was originally born in Atlanta, and the family had moved to Boulder, Colorado, and Patsy was a former beauty queen and got her daughter into it too, which many moms and daughters
They do
share
that. Mm-hmm.
the same interests and likes, and so she was pretty prominent in that scene. And so there was lots of suspicion around maybe some jealous competitor and their family. Again, it's not solved. We don't really know who did it. And since then, the mom has passed away. She's had cancer and she is no longer here.
And how
Yes.
old was Jonbenet? Wasn't she 6, I think?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was really little. When I looked at all the pictures of her, I know she had all the makeup on, and I'm sure those were her beauty pictures,
Right. And
for
the
the
tabloids are going
pageants.
to smear that and make the parents look really bad because those kind of stories get people to buy magazines. And
Right.
yes,
She looked a lot older for her young age with all the makeup on. I remember thinking that when I would see her face in the magazines and so forth. But gosh, I would say that probably went on for months and months as far as advertising her disappearance. This was a huge case. So Dorothy Allison appeared on the Lisa Gibbons show on April 27th of 1998. And she made the announcement that she could exonerate Jonbenet's parents and identify the killer. She said she had this psychic vision, and during the show, she produced these details about the killer, including saying that he had connections to Germany and Georgia. And she did work with a police artist to create a composite sketch of this suspect. Now, the Ramseys started this campaign in 2000. And 2 years later, her parents, John and Patsy, posted Allison's sketch on their website as part of their effort to find their killer. They were asking the public if they recognized this man and if they could get help. Now, Allison described this suspect as possibly being a handyman, and she got the names Martin and Irving. And Allison truly believed he was the murderer.
That's interesting because I do remember there being some talk about who has been working in the house outside of the family that has access to the home and potentially knew how to get in, knew what window to open, those kind
Mhm.
of things. But there was a broken window in the basement, and I remember there was some conflict in the evidence, how it was noticed by the dad and not by law enforcement, a whole bunch of other questionable things with the case. I'm not sure if the details of the scene itself were out there
Yeah, I
before
don't
she
know.
had come in. I think that there was still very little known. Just going off of personal memory when all this was happening.
Right.
I was in college at that time, so sure I wasn't paying a lot of attention to what was going on at that time, but
I just remember seeing it all over the TV.
yeah.
Well, in 2006, you had this guy comes forward saying that he's the one that did it. His name was John Mark Carr, and he actually does favor Allison's sketch if you look at it a little bit, but there are some differences. So if I was to look at this back then, I don't think I would have pinpointed as him as the killer,
No,
but
I think if you look at it from far away, even the angle of the photo and the sketch are the same. I mean, maybe the jawline's a little off and the hair is a little
and the
off.
bottom lip's a little off.
Yeah.
John
I
Carr
mean, I
has
think
more of
all police sketches are a little bit off somehow. But so did she draw this herself, or
no,
she
she
had a
worked
sketch
with
artist?
yeah, she
Okay.
worked with police sketch artists to
Yeah.
come up with the drawing.
Okay.
So, and like I said, I can see some differences.
Sure.
The bottom of the jaw line, his is more of a long type square
Wider
face,
at the bottom, but the drawing is more
pointed.
pointed.
He's got more of a fuller bottom lip than what the composite drawing is.
Right.
Hair's a little different, but the whole reason why this John Mark Carr confessed to it was because he was highly obsessed with this case. Like he followed it, he knew everything about it, just a deep obsession. And he was living in Thailand at the time, and he had legal troubles there. So he confessed to it, hoping that he would be extradited out of Thailand.
Oh, that's why
Yeah.
then.
Plus, he had a deep obsession with it.
Gosh.
Because there was DNA evidence, they tested his DNA up against DNA that was found at the crime scene, and they did not match. So
So,
they're like, dude, you're lying.
so I'm going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate in favor of Dorothy here because I'm sure she got a lot of negative press after that.
Oh, I'm
I would
sure.
think in those that were aware of her claim.
Of course.
But in you understanding her and her gifts and how you see things, I'm starting to wonder if maybe this vision was about somebody confessing to it, but not necessarily the one who did it.
Absolutely.
So she got some kind of a message that this guy is going to say he did it. And maybe she
Mhm.
interpreted that incorrectly.
Could have been.
That, oh, this is the guy. Or
The only thing that would make me think different on that is that she got the names like Martin and Irving, which didn't match
yeah.
John Carr. So if that was the case, maybe she got those names and then his face, knowing that he would admit to it. But I don't know, with those names.
So he admitted after she had expressed what she saw,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. She did this in 1998. He came in 2006 and confessed.
Yeah.
So
he probably thought, maybe I resemble this drawing a little bit. Maybe it'll get me out of here.
right. Well, if you remember
sneaky.
when I was saying, a lot of times when you get information, some of that information is subject to how you interpret it. Remember, I
Yeah,
gave
you
the
did say that.
example of James von Prague and the necklace, right? So maybe sometimes when psychics go to give information on something like a crime scene or an important case, maybe they don't have all the facts together. They're trying, right? But they just interpreted it differently.
Right.
Or the wrong way.
I think I'm just trying to be hopeful that most people are good and have good intentions, especially when
course.
it comes to psychics. Now, I know there are people out there to make profit, but I don't want the public to think that is the motivation for every person who claims to be psychic. I think there are people who genuinely want to be able to share this gift and be helpful, and
Of
they're
course.
desperate to get something that's going to be spot on, and therefore they're going to spout out all these tips and images and sensations that they're receiving and just let it all out there in hopes that something sticks, rather than what I think some people think on a nefarious sense that they're out to make fame and notoriety and make money. Not to say that there aren't people who do that.
Right. And if you recall, Dorothy Allison, when she helped the police work on these cases, she didn't charge anything. Her
Right.
mom taught her not to take any money, and this was considered blood money.
Right.
And something that we didn't mention that I thought was very interesting is that she actually foresaw her own death. Did you know that?
Oh, that's creepy.
Yes. In 1990, she told her family that she would not live to see the age of 75. And guess what? She passed away on December 1st, 1999, a month before her 75th birthday.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I think the woman was real. I really do. I think she was legit.
Sure. But I got to do the skeptic's viewpoint here.
Devil's advocate. I know.
74 is probably the average age of a human being at that time. So she had a pretty good guess.
Oh, whatever. No, I'm not buying that for a minute. Not buying that for a minute.
So
Try again.
that's Dorothy Allison and the
Yes.
case of Jonbenet Ramsey, our Christmas crime case for you.
Yep. And are you ready to move on to the next lady?
Yes. Who else do we have on our list?
Okay. We are going to talk next about Rosemary Kerr. And that's Kerr.
Right. Not as well known as some others, right? But she's the one who assisted on cases both in the U.S. and Canada.
Correct? And she has worked on some high-profile cases. Now, she considered herself a psychic consultant, active from the 1970s to the 1990s, and again, worked with both the Canadian and the American agencies. She did have some notable cases. So in the 1970s, she worked on Ontario's missing person cases. She described seeing ice, cold water, and I know before you say it, it's Canada. But she also said there was a vehicle submerged in the ice cold water. And the missing person's car was eventually recovered from a body of water. Just saying.
Yeah. How many of those stories have you heard? That's exactly the skeptic viewpoint right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And we will
The
go into
odds are.
detail
Yeah.
in one of her cases in a minute.
Yeah.
But in the 1980s, she worked U.S. domestic homicide cases. One in particular, she described seeing a tool shed, freshly turned soil, and a man with a distinctive tattoo. Investigators located an evidence site that consisted with her descriptions, and the suspect later confessed. So, another one for her. 1980s to 1990s, she worked multiple Canadian missing person cases. Now, one case that I want to talk about is the disappearance of Andre Daigle. On June 9th of 1987, 27-year-old New Orleans resident Andre Daigle met a friend for dinner and a few rounds of pool. It turned into a long night of drinking for both of them, after which Daigle was never seen alive again. Now, when the news of Daigle's disappearance had reached his sister, Elise McGinley, in Southern California, she is the one that reached out and sought the help of Rosemary Kerr.
Rosemary was in California at the time, right?
Yes, Andre was living in New Orleans, but both Elise McGinley and Rosemary Kerr were living in California. So, how did she do it? Well, Kerr was given some photos of Daigle. She put a finger on the photo, and she sensed immediately, she said, that he was dead. Like she automatically knew. Now, according to the testimony in the murder trial that followed, Rosemary would also correctly identify where Daigle's body would be found, and that would be in a New Orleans swamp. Now, this was huge. The discovery helped break this case, and it resulted in the conviction ultimately of two men who ended up testifying that they killed Daigle for sport. Can you imagine? Now, going into it, when I was doing my research, I found an article from the LA Times archives from February 7th of 1988, and I'd like to read that. It'll give us a little more information on this. So, it says, a murder trial in this suburban New Orleans town took a strange twist last week when a California psychic testified that she helped crack a Louisiana homicide case last June from her home 2,000 miles away. So get this, she never went to New Orleans. The trial ended Friday when the defendant, Michael Phillips, 22, of Kenner, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. But the highlight of testimony came Thursday when Rosemary Kerr took the stand to tell how she helped solve the murder of Andre Daigle of River Ridge. Now, when the jury of 9 women and 3 men were listening in the courtroom of Judge Clarence McManus, Kerr said she led the Daigle family to his missing truck near Slidell. The truck had belonged to the victim and had been driven away by the 2 men who were later charged with Daigle's death. Kerr of Cypress, California, said that since then she has communicated with the spirit of Daigle, a 27-year-old house renovator, several times. She said Daigle has told her that his family should forgive the people who beat and strangled him before dumping his body in the swamp near Manac, if I said that right. Kerr said she has relayed Daigle's spirit message to the large Daigle family of River Ridge. Quote, some family members have not been exactly that forgiving, she testified. Kerr, whose business card describes her as clairvoyant, medium, psychometrist, and psychic investigator, said she had never been to New Orleans before arriving this week for Phillips' trial. Elise McGinley, remember this is the sister, of Fulton, California, testified that after learning of her brother's disappearance in Jefferson Parish, she went to Kerr on the night of June 13th upon the advice of a coworker. Kerr said she closed her eyes and placed a finger on the picture that McGinney furnished and introduced into evidence. It was a snapshot of Andre and his 2 brothers. I was moving across the picture for vibrations, Kerr testified. Then she said she could then picture Daigle in his truck sitting beside a man with long blonde hair. She said she saw water, a long bridge with railroad tracks, and I felt terrible pain in my head, and a voice was saying, my head is killing me. She also closed her eyes and moved a finger on a map of the state and says, I felt a tingling and I stopped, she said. Her finger stopped near Slidell. I told Elise she should get someone to that area as quickly as possible, she said. Kerr testified that at the time, she actually knew that Daigle was dead, but she said, I could not tell his sister then. I knew she would have to be prepared for death. Now, Charles Gervius, the other man found in Daigle's stolen truck when it was stopped by Pearl River Police near Slidell, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison before Phillips's trial. At the time of his arrest, Gervis told authorities that he and Phillips killed Daigle as a test of nerves. They also needed to kill to get a vehicle and money for guns. What an excuse. Take somebody's life for that. That's a bunch of crap. That makes me mad.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of this case before, just in podcast listening to true crime.
Yep.
So some of you may be familiar with that particular case, but I don't believe the stories I heard had mentioned that Rosemary Kerr was involved with it. But it's the unique thing about that is the remoteness of her picking up.
And
just
the psychometry.
The psychometry of it, too. Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine? 2,000 miles away. She's never been to New Orleans, but yet she's picking up all that information.
Right.
Now, how does that wrap around your skeptic mind?
Well, a lot of us know New Orleans is in the swamps, and there are lots of bridges and water, and you don't have to be there to know that. But again,
how did she find Slidell, though?
It's on a map. And it's a pretty big city, too. Yeah.
But out of the entire map.
I used to live close there. It's pretty big. It's pretty well known.
But out of an entire map and all the cities that are on a map, Slidell. I mean, come on. And
well,
it's
she
correct.
knew he was in Louisiana. I mean, he went missing in Louisiana.
Right, but she didn't know where. And she didn't know Slidell.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
It's a head scratcher for sure.
And again, law enforcement is not going to acknowledge any help.
I wonder how specific was she? Where on a map did she point? The article doesn't mention if she was pointing to a specific spot or just check Slidell. I mean, it's a big suburb type city. Did they go based off of her tip, or did somebody stumble upon?
I mean, the article doesn't say. Yeah, we don't know. The
article
doesn't
go into enough detail.
But I can tell you, I know what she's talking about when she talks
Yeah,
about the energy pool,
right,
because sometimes when I am touching something, I can feel it's almost like a magnet pull is the best way I can describe it.
right.
Like you're being pulled towards something. And
Yeah,
so if her hand is on that map and she feels it pulling towards Slidell, she moves her finger over there and just can tell you Slidell.
right.
Now, could she have gotten a little bit closer if you had a map of
Right,
Slidell
that's what
in a
I'm
certain
saying. We don't
area?
know what map she looked at.
Right.
How generalized was her recommendation, or was it specific? And who found the body? Did they go based on her recommendation, or did somebody stumble upon it?
The body was found in the swamp near the community of Magac. Didn't I sound Boston for you?
Macaque. Oh,
Magac.
macaque. You better go see a doctor for that. No,
Illicit content.
sorry.
That's her
Oh,
Boston
Merry
yank coming
Christmas,
out.
everyone.
So,
Sorry, we don't mean to make fun of any towns.
Magacs.
It's hard to not let the Boston come out of that one.
I'm not even Boston, and it came
It's
out
the A because you've been hanging around me too much.
right. Oh, I'm still all Southern though,
So
baby.
wait, I hope we're pronouncing that correctly. We did look that up. It's macaque, right?
You got the guy that says it, Macaque. Play
Yeah,
that.
he's there.
Play that. We'll see if we sound
Yeah.
like him.
Let's
Macaque.
see.
Macaque.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not as Boston though. You know what I mean?
It's just okay.
Anyway,
Well, let's move
what-
on then.
we digress.
So wait, the body was found there?
Yeah, but what I didn't mention earlier is when the body was found, it was wrapped in curtains and it was actually nailed inside a maroon sofa. Can you imagine?
What?
Yes. Being wrapped up in a curtain and then shoved inside of a couch.
A cat. Well, I wonder if because I mean,
it would hide it, though.
in
Think
some
about
old
it.
roads, some people just dump old furniture on the side of their. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So think about how that would really conceal a body, especially if it's wrapped up in a curtain. So you
Yeah.
can't really see body parts there. Plus, you shove it inside of an old couch. I mean, and
This poor
even if it's dumped
guy.
on the side of the road, ain't nobody going to see it. Now, that doesn't mean they won't smell it if they get close
Oh.
enough. But just
Oh.
driving by or whatever it was, if it's on some sort of road, they wouldn't see it. But this was in the swamp. So I don't know if they had it in the water or
Mhm.
if it was just like sitting on the edges of a swamp. I don't really know. The research didn't really say. Now,
But that
this-
is what Rosemary was picking up on, right?
yeah, well, she picked up, definitely on the swamp.
Yeah.
Said that's where his body was. And she also picked up on his missing truck.
Now, I would be impressed if she said he's in a couch
I would too.
because
Yeah,
that's not usual.
right.
But I mean, if you know someone's missing in Louisiana, where are you going to hide a body? In a swamp.
In a couch.
In a couch in a swamp.
I think that's the first
In a
time.
gator in the swamp.
Right? In Manac.
No, macaque.
Sorry.
Macaque. It sounds like a bird, too.
Oh, Lord.
Macaque.
We got to lay back on the
Oh,
coffee.
yes.
Lord have mercy.
There is nothing in our coffee, I promise you.
So she says. Mine has a little bit of half and half and some, well, because we're not
French
at my
vanilla
house.
sweetener.
Normally, I like mine blonde and sweet, little French vanilla or little caramel with little sweetener. But yeah, we're at Kathy's at our office up here.
Our pod lab.
But yeah, no, as far as the couch thing goes, I think that's the first time I've ever heard of anybody wrapped up in a couch before, like
Yeah.
shoved in a couch.
Hopefully
have you ever
we
heard of
don't
that?
have anybody taking notes as they listen to this podcast.
How do you get away with a crime? No, that's
No.
not what we're saying here.
No.
But have you ever heard of that before?
Mm-mm,
I don't think I
no.
have either. That's pretty
No.
unique.
No, and I'm a pretty avid true crime podcast listener. And I do
Me
remember
too.
this case, but I don't remember that detail.
Hmm.
So maybe there's a similar case. And that, again, points to the skeptic viewpoint. So many cases of people who've gone missing in the state of Louisiana end up in a swamp. I mean,
Right.
the whole state is pretty much below sea level. Well, the southern part, the Gulf side.
And if you know anything about the residents of the swamp, they are
Mhm.
very to themselves. They are very protective over their environment, their homes,
Yeah, there's a
their
culture
areas.
there. Mm-hmm.
Yes. The New Orleans police, they didn't initially suspect any sort of foul play when Daigle went missing in 1987.
Because they probably thought he was too drunk and had an accident and they just haven't found him. How about
Right.
his car went over a bridge somewhere. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It wasn't until his sister Elise sought the help of psychic Rosemary Kerr that they started to take a different look because she was able to provide accurate details of Daigle's missing truck location and where his body would be found. In fact, she did tell him not only in a swamp, but it was off of a specific highway. She
Okay.
told him what
So
highway,
there was
too.
specifics. So she pointed on the map to Slidell, but she had some more details.
Yes, I found that
Okay.
later on in some research when I
Okay.
was reading. There were two men that were involved in this. One was Charles Gervelis and Michael Phillip. They were both arrested in Daigle's truck. They were driving it. And have you ever heard of America's dumbest criminals? Why would you drive something that's stolen of someone that you killed, knowing you're taking a chance of
Right.
getting pulled over and getting caught?
And it's clear he's a missing person.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we won't say everybody's got some brains. But anyway,
Much swamp air.
right?
Macaque.
Or macaque. What was it?
Macaque.
Macaque. All right. But Charles Gervis, one of the guys that was arrested and found in the truck, he's the one that provided the key information that led the police to the body's exact location. So he basically told on themselves and said, here
Right.
you go. Here's where you
Maybe
can find
his
him.
conscience was getting to him.
Possibly. I mean, who knows? He could have been a little spooked too by Rosemary coming in, and
Yeah, I mean, if he heard about it, I don't know if that was
possible. I mean, I'm
that
not saying if he
widespread.
did.
Yeah.
So then what's really unique and interesting as far as New Orleans history goes is that Rosemary Kerr was later called to testify at this murder trial of Michael Phillips. So
So
one of the
that's
second
new.
guys. Yes. And this made her the first psychic ever to be placed on a witness stand in a Louisiana murder case.
So I think in a state like Louisiana, having lived next door in Mississippi for a period of time, I could see how they would be open to metaphysical, maybe.
Yeah, well, we know that a lot of parts of Louisiana are very spiritual.
Right.
As far as they're very open to different religions, you have voodoo, you just have different beliefs. It's a
Right.
mixed culture that came together.
She was put on as a witness. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just interesting right there because she was in California at the time. How can you
Right.
be a witness?
And the
So-
fact that it's psychic impressions.
But it leaves it to the jury to decide. But you would think the judge would throw out.
Yeah. And I wonder when they did the jury selection if they also chose members who didn't believe in psychics
Yeah.
and half that did
Yeah.
to make it more objective and equal.
Mhm. Yeah, very interesting. Worthy of this episode, of course.
Right? But for 2,000 miles away, I'm going to say my hat is off to Rosemary Kerr. I believe that she probably is one of the
That
more
would-
legit ones.
Yeah, that would have to be a really strong impression. Distance doesn't matter when it comes to that spiritual realm.
Absolutely.
That's an earthbound thing. So,
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you've seen me do remote stuff before.
sure.
So I do believe that it's
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, we've been on investigations for paranormal research and with certain clients, and you pick up on people who aren't even from Oklahoma that are tapping in to try to communicate with you. And we're
Think
like, what
about
does this
Sam.
have to do with where we are?
Remember Sam that
Yeah.
I encountered?
Yep,
at
Kendall's.
Kendall's that time, yeah.
Yeah, he was not from that area.
No,
but
he was from
came in to
California,
chat with
actually.
you. Mhm,
Mhm.
yeah.
Very interesting. All right, so we will continue going on with our next person. So we're going to talk about this next psychic detective. His name is Bill Ward. Now, he's a little lesser known than some of these other psychics that we have talked about, and he does have some officer testimonials. He worked primarily in the 1970s and 1980s. He had a strong rapport with local detectives in his area. He did assist the sheriff's department, worked with the homicide units, missing persons division. Now, officers described Ward as, quote, useful and credibly accurate at times, or a source of additional leads. Now, Ward makes use of some other tools in his practice of psychic detection, including he uses psychometry. And again, that's where you touch those objects to obtain information. And he also claimed to see auras and biorhythms.
Ooh.
So that is interesting. Some of the notable cases, I guess you could say. In the 1970s, there was a series of assault cases in Midwestern U.S. Now, the police actually consulted Ward for their suspect characteristics. And Ward described the car with rear damage to it and a man with a speech quirk. Now, the outcome of that was a suspect later was identified who matched portions of this description. So just to give you some background on him before we get to his one really big case. Now, in the 1980s, there was a missing child case. Ward described a red barn, scattered debris, and a small footbridge. The outcome of this was that the police expanded their search to rural areas featuring those type of landmarks. Then the child was eventually located deceased in a similar terrain. So he saw what the area looked like. In the 1980s, there was an elderly missing persons case. Ward sensed these thick weeds, a ditch, and some metallic objects. And yes, that is very vague. However, the outcome of it was that searchers later found the victim in an area with a drainage culvert and very tall vegetation. So,
Well,
hmm?
somebody meaning a psychic.
Yeah.
They frequently submit their thoughts. One or two times, they're probably going to be right. Again, tall grass, what's common areas for hiding. So they could have forgotten all the misses and they only think about the hits. So then that can skew how somebody sees this gift in a person. 99% of the time they're wrong. And then the one time they get a hit, then everybody all of a sudden thinks, wow, he's accurate.
Right. But again, different psychics work different ways. So was he seeing this through the victim's eyes or was he seeing this from a distance? So how it works for me is when I am seeing things psychically, I can see things through the victim's eyes, or I can see, it's almost like I am standing right outside of that area, or in this case, like a crime scene, to see what's around. So in the case, remember I gave that example of the little boy named Adam whose body was dumped in the tall weeds of 4 foot, and he wanted his mom and dad to know where he was. He didn't even know himself. So he showed me through his eyes where he was, but all I saw was grass around. So different ways that psychics can perceive this information makes a difference too.
But at the same time, the skeptic can say many people are found in tall grass.
Of course.
Right. So
yeah,
you say that a few times, one of the cases is true.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, if he continues to work. But he did have one really big case. It was the Jonbenet case. So in February of 1978, so we're going to roll it back quite a few years. We won't count how many because I was born in the 70s. But 37-year-old Floyd Jean or Jeannie Bennett was a court reporter in Beaverton, Oregon, and disappeared. She had left home reportedly to go shopping, and she had not been seen since. Her checks and her credit cards remained unused, and most of a $90,000 inheritance vanished with her. Now, that's a little suspicious too, don't you think, right? You're given $90,000 for your inheritance, and then, are you going to disappear?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she didn't want to share it with anybody. I might disappear too. So anyway, her husband was Robert Eugene or Bob Bennett. He's the one that reported her disappearance to the police. According to Bennett, he and his wife had fought and she had left him for another man. She probably didn't want to share that money with her husband. So she's like, look, I remember all those times you treated me like crap and got me chocolate and roses and I'm gone.
Or, what a way to smear somebody he just hurt, making himself out to be the victim and she's the evil one, right?
True. And the husband is usually always the one that is the suspect first. Did they check his bank account? Where's that $90,000? Because, if he's going to knock her off, you better get that money, right? Make it worth it. Try to spend some before you get busted. So Bennett became the prime suspect in his wife's disappearance. Voila, there you go. But police were unable to collect enough evidence to charge him with this crime. The case remained open, but inactive, so it went cold. And in 1988, a Portland private investigator named Ray Monty was working on the Bennett case and decided to contact Ward after reading about him in the National Examiner. So he's like, man, I'm desperate. I need some clues. Let me contact Bill Ward. So Monty sent Ward copies of materials regarding the Bennett case and spoke with him by telephone. And Bill Ward told Monty that either Jeannie Bennett's body or something belonging to her was buried in the backyard of the home of Bob Bennett's deceased brother-in-law. So, wow. So this would have been her brother, right? Or her sister's husband. The outdoor barbecue was specifically mentioned as the most important place to dig. So Bob and Jeannie Bennett had once lived in this house, which was notable for various do-it-yourself improvements. The driveway had been repaved, a former greenhouse in the backyard had been converted into a storage shed, and a concrete patio and an outdoor brick barbecue had been built. Now, Monty obtained permission from the current owner of the house to dig and begin removing bricks from the barbecue with a soup spoon and a screwdriver. Now, why in the world would you use a soup scoop? Was he afraid of destroying evidence?
It's probably like an archaeological technique so that you don't destroy things.
I could never be an archaeologist. I would get too impatient. I'd be like, get me the dadgum shovel. So anyway, the Beaverton Police Department learned of Monty's activities and they had him removed from the site so they could dig it themselves. They wanted all the credit.
Get rid of that spoon and get the shovel.
Right? They're like, get rid of this PI, whatever. Let's get in. He might be onto something. We can take the credit.
Right.
So according to Detective Dan Kelly, this was done to, quote, preserve the evidence and the integrity of the site. 2 holes, 3 feet by 5 feet in area, were dug in the backyard by police and public work employees, but no body was found. That's what you get for being a hog of the site, trying to come in and claim the glory.
Maybe that's how it holds up better in court if it was done by law enforcement versus a private investigator.
Possibly. That's a good point. I could see that.
But Bill had a psychic impression there was something underneath the barbecue where it was built, right?
Well, by the barbecue, if I remember correctly. So
they didn't find anything.
Right. They didn't find anything. And what Bill had said was that he felt either Jeannie's body or something that belonged to her was buried in the backyard of the home of Bob Bennett's deceased brother-in-law. And he said that the outdoor barbecue was specifically mentioned as the most important place to dig. So he felt something was underneath the barbecue.
I wonder how thorough that was, because you mentioned 4 different holes, but did they leave some space untouched? Probably not below the barbecue pit, I would imagine.
But you've seen a site to where, say they're searching for something in a yard and they dig a hole here and a foot beside it, they dig a hole there. So that way they're not...
The foot that they skipped.
Well, true. But I think maybe they do that so that way they have something to stand on in the yard and it's not like one big pit.
Wow, yeah, I'd say make the pit.
Well, I would too, right? Because what if something was missed in that 1 foot?
Right, so we can't be 100% sure. Did they ever find anything out in this case?
Well, okay, I'm getting to that. All right, so the case of the disappearance of Jeannie Bennett remains unsolved. So,
you go right back to that barbecue pit.
What does the case demonstrate about the psychic abilities of Bill Ward? Not much, unfortunately.
But the whole in-law thing and the barbecue pit is pretty specific.
It is.
But he was not proven to be correct on this case.
Correct. He wasn't proven accurate on this one. But now this PI, Monty, still has a positive view of Ward and still thinks that the body of Jeannie Bennett might be buried in the backyard of Bob Bennett's brother-in-law. Now, the Beaverton Police Department search was less than exhaustive. 2 holes in the backyard, neither of which involved digging under the concrete patio or the barbecue, though one was next to the barbecue. There are more ambiguities in this case. So they didn't dig under the barbecue pit.
They did next to it?
They did next to it, but they didn't dig underneath it. So what's the point? Bill Ward said the barbecue pit.
Important part, yeah.
Yes. So in a newspaper report, Monty was quoted as saying that, quote, I had never even thought about the barbecue and never mentioned it to Ward, unquote. So the PI is like, listen, I didn't mention anything about there being a barbecue pit, and Ward knew it, basically. And that Ward said the body would be found on one side or another of the barbecue, either a body or an object. Now, in a 1991 interview, however, Monty said that he had a hunch that the barbecue was important even before he had spoken to Ward and that he had mentioned it to him.
Oh, so this is that retrofitting.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm getting a vision of the barbecue.
Right. So Monty also reported that Ward said, quote, Either she or something of hers is under that fireplace, unquote, rather than on one side or the other. Now, according to Monty, kids had dug up bones on the site before his attempt to dig. When asked about this, Detective Kelly stated that no human bones were ever found. Around 1989, according to Monty, Bob Bennett was captured in Las Vegas attempting to use the identification and credit cards of a coworker who had been murdered in Utah. Bennett was convicted and imprisoned for this murder. Detective Kelly confirmed that Bennett is in prison. The Jeannie Bennett case remains open but inactive. The evidence does not clearly establish whether Ward is right or wrong. However, it does not provide Bill Ward with support for his claim to have psychic abilities.
Probably just never listened to him, and they also didn't check the husband's bank account.
Right. Again, the husband's always the first suspect. Even if Jeannie's body were discovered under or in the vicinity of the outdoor barbecue, this would show only that Monty's hunch, which he probably did reveal to Ward, was correct. So while Ward has claimed to be more than 80% accurate in his work in over 400 homicide cases, psychologist Louise Ludwig, who has worked with many psychic detectives and advocates used by police, suggests that a more reasonable figure of 20 to 25% is accurate.
What makes him say that it's not 85%? Or for Bill, he also has the burden of proof that 85% of the time he's correct.
Right. Well, and here's another thing. This is why if you're going to have gifts, be real careful if you really want to go super public and get real well known. There's always a risk of someone coming out saying that you're a fraud, even though you might not be, because there's been so many people out there that have been frauds that have given the psychic name a bad name. Well, we have one more that I want to talk about for this episode. Now, this one is unique. Her name is Etta Smith. She is not a psychic, but she did have a psychic vision, and she was able to help law enforcement solve a murder case. So, why did she see things psychically if she wasn't psychic? Let me give you a little background. So, as a young girl, Etta Smith claimed to have odd feelings about future events. But it wasn't until she was 32 that she had a psychic experience while working at an aerospace facility on December 17th of 1980. She heard a news bulletin about the disappearance of a nurse named Melinda Uribe, and Etta had a psychic vision of where Melanie's body would be found. A few days later, Etta and her daughter located Melanie's body. Now, detectives thought she was involved, and of course, why wouldn't you?
That was right where my brain went.
Exactly. And she was arrested for Melanie's murder. However, the real killers later confessed, and Etta was released soon after. She still continues to help police departments solve cases with her psychic abilities to this day.
Where I'm confused. If you're not a psychic, but yet you have psychic visions, that then makes you a psychic.
Right? Maybe she was just psychic and didn't know it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little background on this nurse. She was a nurse. She was born September 9th of 1948. And again, her name is Melanie Uribe. She was divorced, a Caucasian female. She was 31 years old and worked as the nurse at Palacoma Hospital in Burbank, California. And I might have butchered that name. She was a divorced single mother of an 8-year-old son. On her way to work in a pickup truck, witnesses saw 2 men abduct her by forcing their way into her truck while she was waiting at a stoplight. When she failed to turn up for her shift at the hospital on the night of December 15, 1980, Melanie's employer telephoned her house but got no answer. She was considered reliable and punctual, so fearing the worst, the police were called. By the next morning, they had found her pickup truck burned out and her nurse's uniform. On December 17th, a 32-year-old shipping clerk at the Lockheed Aerospace plant named Etta Smith heard about Melanie's disappearance on the radio and about the house searches the police were conducting. Immediately, despite not having any prior knowledge of the case, she thought to herself, she's not in the house. As soon as that thought crossed her mind, she claimed she had a vision, which was like a movie, very clear. And I've described that before. Sometimes you see it that way. She saw a canyon and a curving road, shrubbery hills in the backdrop, and a dirt path leading to something white. Etta believed that the white may have been Melanie's uniform and that it was her body. The vision was a clue to the nurse's location. She didn't know the places' names, but she felt she knew the way there. She did not consider herself psychic at the time. Nonetheless, she left work early to talk to the police. Detective Lee Ryan, despite his skepticism, found Etta credible, noting her credentials as a businesswoman and her top security clearance, and decided to see what she knew about Melanie's disappearance. Etta pinpointed the area where she believed Melanie's body would be found on a map, a remote part of the San Francisco Valley, Lopez Canyon, above Lakeview Terrace. That's pretty specific, by the way. She had a strong feeling that Melanie, dead or alive, was there, and an overwhelming urge to look for her as soon as possible. Fearing that she wasn't being taken seriously, Etta's recurring vision prompted her to search the area that same day with a few family members rather than wait for the police. Cruising slowly toward the top of the canyon in her car, she felt a, quote, trauma, unquote, and became certain in her mind that Melanie was in the canyon. Deciding to drive down the canyon once more, she noticed fresh tire tracks, felt the same way, trauma, and somehow knew that this vehicle was involved. Further down the canyon, they stopped again when Etta's daughter noticed something strange in the brush. Etta started towards it, and she saw a body in white nursing shoes. The landscape was exactly as it had been in her visions. An autopsy determined that the body was indeed Melanie Uribe, and that she had been robbed, stripped naked, sexually assaulted, and beaten to death. Etta's vision, as she had described it, had been confirmed. However, Melanie's killers remained at large. Suspicion subsequently fell upon Etta. Inevitably, the evening after Melanie was discovered, Etta was arrested. Detectives questioned Etta, and they were legitimately suspicious about how Etta knew this information about the case. After questioning her for several hours, they had her take a polygraph test. She passed it. However, the detectives told her that she failed it. Well, that's pretty messed up. And a detective's words testimony is that she was trying to be deceptive, even attempting to control her breathing. We know polygraph tests are not even submittable in court. The police believed that if she wasn't involved with the murders, her information was coming from gossip in her neighborhood. Whatever. Or perhaps someone who had heard something but was too afraid to come forward. They thought her motivation for claiming a vision may have been financial gain. While it could be more generally believed that she fell because the trauma of the vision and corpse hunting excursion made her behave oddly, either way, well, I know, right? This left her as having intricate knowledge on the location of the body, yet a very improbable claimed source of the knowledge. The next morning, she was formally charged with the murder. Now, this crime was solved, okay? Shortly after Etta was charged with Melanie's murder, a police informant said that he had heard one of the killers bragging about the murder in his neighborhood. This man was arrested and confessed, implicating 2 more young men in this crime. Etta was then released on December 21st. The police later arrested Louise Carnell Morgan, age 20, Norman Willis, age 17, and Spencer Nelson, age 21, who were taken into custody. It was later revealed that the trio had jumped into Miss Uribe's truck at a stoplight and driven her into the canyon 15 miles north before robbing and sexually assaulting her, and then beating her to death while she begged for her life. The cause of death was blunt trauma from being hit over the head with a large rock. Her killers were later convicted and are now serving life in prison.
So it's just baffling that they can make assumptions like, oh, you're just trying to get money or fame. No, your polygraph isn't real. We're going to arrest you anyway.
People just assume.
See, if you know the exact location of where the body can be found and then the body is found, I can see how that would make somebody wonder, how do you know this information? And leads them to probable cause, and at least they should bring the person in for questioning.
Right. Well, the thing is, if she did kill Melanie, why in the world would she want to go tell police where the body was and then just incriminate herself? That makes no sense. So I thought that was cool, but maybe she did realize that she did have some psychic powers in a sense.
If you're into true crime, you may have heard a lot of discussion on how there's a lot of pressure on law enforcement to solve cases.
Of course.
It could be that they're really just looking for a scapegoat here, someone to point blame to and get the case solved, and she was an easy target. So that wraps up part 3, and it looks like we're going to have to go into a part 4.
Yes, because we still have a few more to discuss.
So you're going to have to wait to hear more next week.
I'm enjoying this one. It's fun.
So we're on a little true crime stint for you, and we may just go into a part 5, but keep listening because we've got some pretty well-known psychics we're going to talk about and some pretty famous true crime cases that they were involved with. So keep listening because we've got everything paranormal for you in the new year. We will cover case files from our paranormal investigative team. We'll talk about some cryptozoology, and we are going to feature psychic readings by Christy right here on the podcast. You can share your own parastories, topic suggestions, and comments to psychicandskeptic@gmail.com. That's psychicandskeptic@gmail.com. So you can find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts, and thank you for listening.
Because the paranormal is the normal.
Not yet understood.